We're going to be exploring the southern coast by taking US 98. Come on, let's go! Alright everyone, today we're going to be doing the Great US 98. US 98 is the highest two-digit number in the entire US highway system, and because of that, it mainly parallels the Gulf Coast in the states of Alabama, a little bit of Florida, and goes all the way down to just north of Miami. And along its route, it goes through a whole bunch of coastal cities like Panama City Beach, Pensacola, the city of Mobile, and others. And since why not summertime, it's a perfect time to do US 98 because many people travel to the beach. So let's get started with US 98. But first, you're watching TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free extra request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of US Highway 98 as it starts all the way up at a junction with US 6184 in Natchez, Mississippi, heads through the states of Mississippi, Alabama, and a majority of Florida, ending all the way down here in West Palm Beach on the Atlantic coast. So with that, we're going eastbound on US 98. So begin here on US 84 and 61 itself, where you can see that US 84 and 98 are being signed for Brookhaven and Macomb, which are fine for these highways, but not for Interstate 55. And here we go under the Natchez Trace Parkway, which actually ends a couple miles south of the 61, 84, and 98 junction. And here we get our first mileage sign with Macomb on the bottom line from 50 miles away. Here in Meadville, we split off from US Highway 84, and according to the wiki, this is where US 98 actually begins, but there is signage beyond Meadville concurrent with US 84, so that's why I started all the way up there instead of here at the 84 junction. And skipping ahead a little bit, we're now going to be joining with Interstate 55, and we're now going to be heading south towards Macomb and Hattiesburg. I would prefer to see New Orleans and Hattiesburg, please, not Macomb. And here in Macomb, we split off from Interstate 55 as they'll be heading south towards New Orleans, and we're just getting signed for Tylertown and Liberty. If you were signing Hattiesburg at the 55 junction, then why not have Hattiesburg on this sign here, Mississippi? Ugh. Anyways, as we're exiting out of the Macomb area, we're going to be meeting with US Highway 51, and we're now signed for Tylertown. No, I want to see Hattiesburg. But luckily in our next mileage sign, we do get Hattiesburg as our primary from 69 miles away. And a ways up the road, this is in Tylertown, and we're still getting Hattiesburg as our primary, and it looks like that Mississippi has stolen South Carolina's capital, like how they did with North Carolina's capital on Interstate 20. Anyways, here outside of Hattiesburg, we're now going to be joining with Interstate 59 southbound, and we're actually getting pretty awesome control cities. This is rare by Mississippi. Well done! And here's where we split off from Interstate 59 as we're getting signed for Lucedale and Mobile. And still in the Hattiesburg area, we're meeting with US Highway 49, which is a pretty interesting highway that I would like to do someday. And our first mileage sign after splitting off from Interstate 59, we get Mobile on the bottom line from 82 miles away. So it looks like that Mississippi is actually doing pretty good on US 98. Here in Lucedale, we'll meet with Mississippi Highway 63, which will take you to also Leakesville and Moss Point. And if we take a look on Mississippi 63, we can see that US 98 is getting signed for Mobile, which makes total sense because there's nothing left in Mississippi to sign. And sadly, we do not get a Welcome to Alabama sign, though they would provide the terrible Sweet Home Alabama one if they did. And here we meet with Alabama Highway 158, and we're now getting signed for Wilmer. I want to see Mobile. I mean, while it is slightly faster to take Alabama 158 down to Mobile, US 98 should not be signed for unincorporated community. Come on, LDOT. But skipping ahead to the Mobile area, we're meeting with Interstate 65, which is getting signed north for Montgomery, which is a great choice, while we're going to be heading towards downtown Mobile. And here we meet the southern terminus of US Highway 45, and I will be doing a series on that this fall, so stay tuned for it. And we can see that LDOT does give us an end shield for the great US 45. Here in downtown Mobile, we're meeting with US Highway 90 for the first time, and certainly not for the last, as we're going to begin the great 90 and 98 concurrency. And here is where 90 and 98 enter the Bankhead Tunnel here. And on the other side, we're meeting with Interstate 10 with a pretty interesting view of the highway. And here we are crossing over the Mobile Bay, and this is actually a pretty interesting looking crossing here. We can see that Interstate 10 is also in the distance to our right or left here. And here we have the famous Bay interchange with Interstate 10, and we can see that Interstate 10 is getting signed for Mobile and Pensacola respectively, so that is good control cities there by LDOT. And this is also an engineering marvel because they built this entirely mostly on the bay. And skipping ahead to the Spanish Fort area, and if you remember my US Highway 31 video, I actually started it off that video with this diagram here explaining how all of this mess is very convoluted. And speaking of US Highway 31, here is the southern terminus of it, and we can see that there is a 31 northbound shield, so let's go. And here we are now entering into the city of Daphne, just south of Interstate 10 here. And at random junctions we can see that we're getting an error shield for Alabama 98 instead of US Highway 98. No! Here in Foley, Alabama, we're meeting with Alabama Highway 59 here in downtown, and this looks like a nice little coastal city. And outside of Foley, we can see that we're now getting signed for Alberta and Lillian as our next two control cities. I mean, I get while it's faster to take US 90/Interstate 10 to Pensacola, I don't mind seeing just one of these places in like West Pensacola on here instead of two Alabama towns. This is just Alabama being provincial here. Anyways, after going through both Alberta and Lillian, here we are crossing over another bay and into the state of Florida now, where we're going to be spending the next almost 700 miles in this state. And here we have a Welcome to Florida sign, so that is awesome by FDOT here. And here in West Pensacola, we're now going to be joining with Florida Highway 292 as we head back up towards US 90. And here's that junction with US Highway 90, and 90 and 98 are going to be concurrent as we head through the Pensacola area. And here's the southern terminus of US Highway 29. And if we did check it out series on US 29, it's in the top right corner here, which actually won this year's March Madness US Highway tournament. So well done to US 29. And like I said in the 29 video, US 98 was actually the runner-up to US 29. So now we've done both highways. After meeting US 29, we're now meeting with Pensacola's Interstate 110, and we can see it's just getting 110 northbound instead of an actual control city. And now we're going to be finally splitting off from US Highway 90 for good as we head towards a whole bunch of beaches along the Florida Panhandle. Here we are now crossing over the Pensacola Bay on the respectfully named Pensacola Bay Bridge. And this actually was requested by At Work Station. He wanted to see the Bay Bridge because this is actually a brand new bridge that was rebuilt after Hurricane Sally destroyed the original one. So thank you for that request. On the other side of the bridge, we're meeting with Florida Highway 399, which will take you towards Pensacola Beach, which I've actually been to personally a few times. In fact, this is the part of US 98 that I've personally been on, between Interstate 110 and Florida 399 here. And we can see that 98 is now getting signed for Fort Walton Beach. And it looks like their FDOT is pulling a New Jersey here and giving it a black background. And here we get a Welcome to Pensacola Beach sign, so that's pretty cool. And And our next mileage time, we actually now get Oskaloosa Island as our primary from 29 miles away, which is only a mile further up the road from Fort Walton Beach. And a ways down the road, we actually now get Panama City as our primary from 76 miles away, so that's an interesting choice. I mean, it's a good one, but it looks like they switched from whatever the previous one was. And along the way to Panama City, we actually pass through the famous city of Destin, which is a cute little beach city. And here's the Harbor Walk Village within the city of Destin. I'd love to go to Destin someday. And still in the Destin area, we're now getting a one-liner for just Panama City from 51 miles away. And on our way to Panama City, we meet with the southern terminus of US 331 here. And in my opinion, it should either become US 229 or US 198 because it doesn't meet any of its siblings or its parent at all. In fact, it only comes within a couple of miles of US 31, but never meets it. Here in Panama City Beach, we meet with Florida Highway 30, which is the scenic route, and US 98 will be heading north of it towards Panama City itself. And here we get a mileage sign with Perry now as our primary from 176 miles away, so now that is a definitely interesting swing. I wonder where we've seen this before. And here we have another intersection request. This one is made by Interstate 59 Productions. They wanted to see Florida 79 because back when they used to travel to Panama City, they would actually use this road as a shortcut to get there. So thank you for that request. Anyways, here in Panama City proper, we meet with US Highway 231, and 231 southbound will take you into downtown. While we can see that 231 northbound is getting the sign for the pathetic Youngstown when it should be Dothan. And after traveling through the Panama City area, we get another mileage sign with Port St. Joe as our primary from 30 miles away. And here in Port St. Joe, we are now getting signed for Perry once again from 127 miles away, with Apalachicola as our secondary from 23. And I think it's okay to sign Perry from this distance because between Apalachicola and Perry, there is nothing worth signing to be as a primary. And here is downtown Apalachicola, and it looks like a nice little beach town. And after crossing over another bay, we actually now meet the southern terminus of US Highway 319, and for some random reason, US 319 and US 98 are concurrent here. And here we get another mileage sign, and we get Carababel on the top line from 13 miles away, and it looks like that FDOT is favoring the US 319 here, and we're now getting signed for Tallahassee, which is an awesome choice. Well done, FDOT. And here in Carababel, we actually passed by the world's smallest police station, so that's pretty interesting. And here, but once we go through Carababel, we now get Perry as our primary once again from only 80 miles away this time. And here we have a pretty redundant split and reunion concurrency. We can see that 319 and 98 split down here, where they travel their own separate ways, and then eventually to reunite in the unincorporated community of Medart to go concurrent again, and then finally to split a little ways north of there. Like, why not just have US 319 and 98 just stay concurrent all the way up to this northern split here? This is just totally redundant here. And here's where US 319 finally splits off from US Highway 98 to head north towards Tallahassee. And to be honest, I think US 319 should just end here at US 98 instead of being with it concurrent all the way to Apalachicola, because it's kind of redundant, and plus it takes away that weird redundant split back that we just saw earlier. Anyways, on our next mileage time, we're now still getting Perry as our primary from 53 miles away, and it, like I said, now it definitely makes sense. Oh man, it looks like that FDOT followed in pursuit of ALDOT and gave US 98 an error shield, sadly. So now we're on Florida 98. And skipping ahead to the Perry area, we're now meeting with US 19, 27, and US Highway 221. And we're now going to be following 19 southbound as we head towards Cross City and St. Petersburg. And if you want to check out the 1998 concurrency, it's in the top right corner here. And here's where we split off from Yes Highway 19. As we can see, we're in the famous Chesahowitzka once again. On our next mileage time, we actually now get Dade City as our primary from 40 miles away, with Brooksville in the top line, which is where US 98 is going. Here in Brooksville, we meet with Florida Highway 50A along with US Highway 41 here, and 41 and 98 are now going to be concurrent with each other. Here's where we split off from US Highway 41, as US 98 is going to be heading south towards Dade City and Orlando. For the next mileage time, we're now getting Groveland as our primary from 38 miles away, which is favoring the Florida 50. If you want to favor Florida 50, why not sign Orlando, not Groveland, please? Here we meet with Interstate 75 on our way to Orlando, and if we take a look on Interstate 75, we can see our control cities are Brooksville and Orlando, which are great choices. Also, this is my own picture back when I went through the area during Thanksgiving. In our next mileage time, we do get Orlando as our primary from 56 miles away. Here's where we're going to be joining with US Highway 301, and we're now going to have a short concurrency with that highway. And here's where we split off from US Highway 301, as we're going to be heading south towards Lakeland now. And if you want to check out US 301, it's in the top right corner here or down in the description below, along with all the other concurrencies that we already covered that will be coming up soon. Our next mileage time, we actually now get Bartow as our primary from 39 miles away. And if you want to sign something beyond Lakeland, Bartow is actually a good choice because that's where you join up with US Highway 17. Here in the Lakeland area, we're meeting with Interstate 4, and eastbound always is signed for Orlando, while westbound is signed for Tampa here. And here we go, mileage time with West Palm Beach being signed from almost 200 miles away. Sadly, this is the only appearance of West Palm Beach until we join up with US 441, but I think it's cool seeing it here. And here in downtown Lakeland, we meet with US Highway 92, and US 98 is going to be continuing south towards Bartow, while US 92 will also take you back toward Tampa. And here south of Lakeland, we actually meet with Florida Highway 570, which is known as the Polk Parkway, and this was actually requested by Ryan Golden, as she wanted to see it because she would use Florida 570 as a shortcut to other places within the Lakeland area, and also over to Tampa, so thank you for that request. And here in the Bartow area, we're now going to be joining with 17 southbound as we head south towards Fort Meade, which is a okay choice. But our next mileage time, we actually do get Punta Gorda as our primary from 74 miles away, so they're favoring 17 southbound here. Here in Fort Meade, we split off from US Highway 17 as we're going to be signed for Sebring as our next primary, which I think is an okay choice because that's where we meet with US Highway 27. In our next mileage time, we do get Sebring as our primary from 39 miles away. Here in Frostproof, we're meeting with US Highway 27, and we're now going to be concurrent with 27 southbound. And our next mileage time, we actually now get Clewiston as our primary from 93 miles away, so they're favoring US 27 once again. And I guess, well, it's not the fastest way to Miami, so I guess Clewiston is the next best choice. And here's where we split off from US Highway 27, as we're now getting signed for Okeechobee as our next control city. In fact, our next mileage time, we do get Okeechobee as our primary from 44 miles away, while we're still in the state of Florida. Here in Okeechobee, we're splitting off from Florida 70 to join up with a long concurrency with US Highway 441. And if you want to check out that concurrency, it's in the top right corner here, which I actually recently covered in a 441 video. And after a really long concurrency with US 441, we split off from it as we're now getting signed for Southern Boulevard, which is okay because we're now about to travel through the heart of the West Palm Beach area. And here, still in the West Palm Beach area, we're actually meeting with the Florida's Turnpike getting signed for Orlando and Miami respectively. And here we meet with Interstate 95 all the way down here in West Palm Beach, and we can see that southbound is getting signed for Miami. while 95 northbound is still getting signed for West Palm Beach despite being already in the city. I think they're just favoring the airport there. Here we meet with the Great US Highway 1, and US 98 is going to be continuing east towards the coast. And we finally end our 990 mile journey along US Highway 98 here at the Florida A1A junction here on the Atlantic coast. So with that, we're turning around and doing westbound US 98. So we begin here on Florida A1A, where we can see that we have a US 98 and Florida Highway 80 shield, and we're also telling us that you can take US 98 here to get over to US 1 and Interstate 95. And what's this? When did US 80 secretly become concurrent with us? Was there like a secret ferry from Tybee Island, Georgia all the way down here to West Palm Beach? Because this is totally an interesting concurrency. Anyways, here we meet with US Highway 1 in the heart of West Palm Beach, and we're now going to be continuing back west towards the West Palm Beach Airport and Interstate 95. Here we meet with Interstate 95 once again, getting the same control cities that we saw going eastbound. And here is the exit for the airport, and going this direction, I would actually like to see a control city for 98 please, instead of just Southern Boulevard. And here on our way out of the West Palm Beach area, we're meeting with the Florida's Turnpike once again. And here we're going to be joining up with US Highway 441 for our long concurrency, and we're now getting signed for Belle Glade as our next control city. And like I did in the going eastbound, I'm going to be skipping the 441 northbound concurrency too. But while on this concurrency, I forgot to show this in the 441 video, but there is an error for US Highway 441 while on this concurrency. Oopsie. Anyway, skipping ahead to Okeechobee, we split off from US Highway 441 as we're now getting signed for Arcadia, which is actually for Florida 70 here. For our next milestone, we actually do get something for US 98, which is Sebring, which I think is an okay choice. Skipping ahead, we're now going to be joining with US Highway 27 here as we head north towards Sebring. And while on the 27th concurrency, we're meeting with Florida Highway 64, and this junction with Florida 64 was requested by East Coast Route Reviewer, as he wanted to see this junction because Florida 64 is a great and awesome route, and he's been on it a bunch, so thank you for that request, and he definitely recommends it. And here's where you split off from US Highway 27 outside of Frostproof, and we're now going to be heading west towards Fort Meade once again. But our next mileage, we actually get Lakeland as our primary from 39 miles away, so that is awesome. Here outside of Fort Meade, we're now going to be joining with 17 northbound as we head north towards Bartow. And here's where we split off from US Highway 17 as we're now getting signed for Lakeland and Tampa, so they're favoring Florida Highway 60 here. In fact, we can see that on our next mileage time, we do get Tampa as our primary from 39 miles away. And after we split off from Florida Highway 60, we're now getting signed for Dade City as our ultimate primary from 42 miles away, which is where we meet up with US 301. And here in downtown Lakeland, we meet with US 92 once again. And here is our junction with Interstate 4, and we can see that there are both directions for the control cities this time. And here on the outskirts of Dade City, we're meeting with US Highway 301, and we're now going to be concurrent with 301 northbound. Here's where we split off from US Highway 301 as we'll head up towards Brooksville, while 301 northbound is heading north towards Wildwood. I mean, I would prefer to see Ocala here on there too as well. But our next mileage time, we're actually now getting Homosassa Springs as our primary from 39 miles away, so they're actually favoring the junction with US Highway 19. But anyways, here we meet with Interstate 75 once again, and I have another picture of this exit, and this one was from the 2024 Thanksgiving trip, so yeah. But our next mileage time, we actually now get Weeki Wachee and Spring Hill, so they're now favoring two places on Florida 50, which I do not like at all. I want to see Homosassa Springs. Here in Brooksville, we're now going to have a wrong way concurrency with US Highway 41 here. And of course, we're now getting 2 unincorporated communities. And this is, I'm gonna give FDOT an F here because I do not like unincorporated communities. We should have Homosassa Springs on here, or Perry, not 2 unincorporated communities. Anyways, here's where we split off from US Highway 41, as we're gonna be heading towards Homosassa Springs and Perry. But our next mile time, we actually now get Crystal River as our primary from 29 miles away, so they're not signing Perry for some reason. Anyways, here on Homosassa Springs, we're now going to be joining with US Highway 19 northbound, and we're going to have a long concurrency with that highway. And here in Perry, we're splitting off from US Highway 19, as we're also meeting with US 27 once again. And we're finally being signed east-west once again, because we are going to be going due west now instead of in a northwest direction. And after splitting off from US 19, we get another 1-line mileage sign with Newport on it from 41 miles away. Newport is the unincorporated community here within the Florida Panhandle. I want to see either Carababel or Apalachicola, because those are the next 2 actual towns we'll be passing through. No need for Newport, FDOT. But after going through Newport, we actually now get Panama City as our primary from 122 miles away, which I think is an awesome choice. Here we meet with US Highway 319, we're going to have a redundant concurrency with it, sadly. And after passing that, we're now getting Panama City still as our primary from 107 miles away. And after going through that other village, we're now getting Panama City still as our primary with Carababel on the top line from 9 miles away. And as we're about to enter into Apalachicola, here's the ending to US Highway 319. And whenever I do a 319 video, we do have an end shield for that highway. And after going through Apalachicola, we're still getting Panama City as our primary from 57 miles away. But once we enter into Port St. Joe, we're now getting Pensacola as our primary from 138 miles away. So they're just skipping Panama City as a secondary and going straight towards Pensacola. So, okay then. Here in Panama City, we meet with US Highway 231 once again, and US 98 is going to be continuing west towards Pensacola and Panama City Beach. And as we're exiting out of the Panama City area, we're meeting with Florida 368 here, or locally known as 23rd Street. And this junction was requested by Royce Thomas, as he wanted to see this because his dad actually stopped at a biscuit place off of 23rd Street here last time he was in Panama City, so thank you for that request. Also, if it's a biscuit place, I definitely would love to check it out someday, because I like biscuits. Here we meet with Florida Highway 30, as I'll take you along the beachfront, and we're going to be signed just for the Panama City Beach Parkway. And after that junction, we're still getting Pensacola as our primary from 95 miles away, with the Destin on the top line from 50. Here we meet with US Highway 331 once again, and this here is a view of one of the bays as we're exiting out of the Destin area here. And after that we get another mileage sign, and we're still getting Pensacola as our primary from 37 miles away. So it looks like the FDOT has been sticking with Pensacola here. Here as we're about to cross back over the bay, we're meeting with Florida Highway 399 once again, and we can see that it's being signed for Pensacola Beach still and Fort Pickens. And here is a view of the Pensacola skyline as we're crossing over the Pensacola Bay on the Pensacola Bay Bridge. And on the other side, we meet the southern terminus of Interstate 110, which is being signed north to Interstate 10, which kind of makes sense because you do have the option to go both directions on Interstate 10. And we can see that 98 westbound is getting signed north for 9th Avenue. And here we reunite with US Highway 90, and 90 and 98 are going to have a concurrency as we head through downtown Pensacola. And here meet the southern terminus with US Highway 29 once again. And here we get a mileage on with just West Pensacola as our primary from 2 miles away. I mean, I would prefer to see something either on US 90 or maybe like Lillian or Foley, Alabama here instead of just West Pensacola FDOT, please. Here is where we're going to be joining up with Florida Highway 292 as we're going to be concurrent with it as we head through West Pensacola. And after concurrency with Florida 292, we're exiting out of the state of Florida and back into Alabama. And here we are going over the bay as we're crossing back into the state of Alabama. And this direction we sadly do get the terrible Welcome to Sweet Home Alabama sign. I do not like it. Here in Foley, we meet with Alabama Highway 59 once again. And here we meet with County Route 98, which instead of making it an alternate route, AlDOT decided to name it as a County Scenic Route, so that is pretty interesting. Also, we're getting signed to... Here in Fair Hope, we can see that we're now getting signed for both Daphne and Spanish Fort, so that is our good control cities. Here in Spanish Fort, we're going to be reuniting with US Highway 90, and 90 and 98 are going to have a concurrency as we head towards Mobile. And here's the southern terminus of US Highway 31. And here's that famous Bayfront interchange once again, as we can see that 10 westbound is just getting signed for Mobile. And here is where we split off from US Highway 90 as we head into downtown. So it looks like that junction that I saw earlier was actually 90 business and not actually 90 proper. Oops. And here we are entering the Bankhead Tunnel once again as we go under the bay and on back towards downtown Mobile. And here is where we split off from 90 business and we say goodbye to both 90 and 90 business forever now as we head back northwest. Here on our way out of Mobile, we'll meet with US Highway 45 here. And here we meet with Interstate 65, and we can see that Interstate 65 northbound is being signed for Montgomery, while southbound just gets to Interstate 10. And after going through the rest of Alabama, we're entering back into the state of Mississippi here, and it looks like that Mississippi does not give us a welcome sign. But we do get our first mileage time, and we get Natchez as our primary from 217 miles away, which is an okay choice, but I would prefer to just see Hattiesburg on the bottom, or as our primary, because it's bigger than Natchez. Here in Lucedale, we'll meet with Mississippi 63 once again. And here we just get a one-liner for Hattiesburg from 50 miles away, so it looks like the Mississippi dropped to Natchez for some reason. And after that junction, we actually now get Natchez as our primary once again from 168 miles away, with US Highway 49 on the top line. Interesting. And here on the outskirts of Hattiesburg, we're meeting with US Highway 49, which will actually take you into downtown here. And now we're going to be joining up with Interstate 59, as we can see 59 southbound is being signed for New Orleans, while 59 northbound is getting the terrible control city of Laurel. No, Mississippi, you know what that should be? That should be Birmingham. The next biggest place that 59 passes through north of here is the city of Birmingham. In fact, Birmingham should be signed since the beginning. No need for your stupid small cities, Mississippi. Also, why are you being signed for Columbia when we're being signed for Natchez at basically the start of the state? It should be Natchez and Birmingham. No need for Columbia and Laurel. Ugh. Mississippi, I thought you were doing really good on this highway. Why did you return to your normal ways here? And here's where we split off from Interstate 59 as getting signed north pathetically for Laurel. And we can see that we're now getting signed westbound for Columbia. No, I want to see Natchez, please. Here in Columbia, we're now getting signed for Tylertown, so they're neglecting Natchez once again, and it looks like that Mississippi has stolen another one of North Carolina's cities of Lumberton. But our next mileage time, we're actually now getting Macomb as our primary from 41 miles away, so they're just straight up neglecting Natchez for some reason. Also, it looks like that Mississippi keeps stealing cities because now we're stealing an Indiana city. But after going through Tylertown, we do get Natchez as our primary once again from 91 miles away. Here outside of Macomb, we're meeting with US Highway 51, and it's being signed for Magnolia and Summit respectively. And now we're going to be joining with Interstate 55 northbound, and it's being at the awesome control city of New Orleans and Jackson. So if they can do this on Interstate 55, then why can't they do it on Interstate 59? It just doesn't make sense for some reason. And here's where we split off from Interstate 55, as we're now consigned solely west for Natchez, so which I think is an awesome choice, because there is nothing worthy left signing west of here, maybe except for Meadville, but no one's heard of Meadville, Mississippi. Everyone's heard of Natchez. In fact, our next mileage time we do get Natchez as our primary from 63 miles away. Here in Meadville, we're meeting with US Highway 84, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Natchez. But our next mileage time, we get Washington as our primary from 30 miles away, which is an unincorporated community, which I do not like at all. But hey, Mississippi, if you really want to be like North Carolina because you stole Raleigh and Lumberton from them, I'll give you a North Carolina meme. How about, you know what should be on this mileage sign? Not Washington! But after going through that other town, we're getting Natchez as our primary once again from 19 miles away, which should have been on that previous mileage sign. Here we go under the Natchez Trace Parkway once again, and we can see that we're going to be ending at US Highway 61 soon. And here is the western terminus of US Highway 98, and sadly we do not have an N98 shield. We just get shields for both US 61 and 84 here. So with that, we end US Highway 98 and move on to all the places I'll go. So these are all the places that I'd visit if I ever was on more of US Highway 98. I'd like to visit the city of Natchez and drive a little bit of the Natchez Trace Parkway. And then the city of Hattiesburg looks like a pretty nice place to visit. And I'd definitely love to visit the city of Mobile and that big Interstate 10 and 9098 interchange on the bay. And then visit the city of Daphne, and then revisit Pensacola because I haven't been there in a long time. And I'd love to visit the city of Destin and the Panhandle beach towns, along with Panama City and Panama City Beach. And I also like to visit the town of Apalachicola, the city of Lakeland and Okeechobee, and finally the West Palm Beach and the Miami area. So that ends US Highway 98. That definitely for sure was a fun highway to cover, as it goes through a lot of beach cities and sometimes has some terrible control city signage, but overall US 98 was actually a pretty well signed highway. Anyways, here are my next few highways. If you have any intersection requests for any of these upcoming highways, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out once these highways release. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next week as we do US 33. Bye!